Alright guys, so I am back now, and this time we're going to go over how to outline your paper. Now whenever you were in high school, and I keep referring back to this not because I expect everyone to come fresh out of high school, but because that's probably the last place you learned anything about writing, whether that be last year or whether that be 50 years ago. I want to make sure I refresh it for everybody. So the thing about this is organization. The last thing you remember most likely is the 5-paragraph essay, where you have the introduction, you have the body, and typically that consists of body 1, body 2, and body 3, and then of course the conclusion. So as you were writing in high school, they probably had you write 5 paragraphs, the intro paragraph where you introduced the topic, the body 1 where it was your first detail and you explained it, body 2, body 3, second detail, third detail, and explain both of those, and then the conclusion where it said, you know, this is what I just talked about, here's the point of my essay, and please pass me on my ACT or whatever essay you were doing. Now, these aren't really applicable here in the sense that they were taught. You're still going to have 5 sections, no longer 5 paragraphs. You might have 10 paragraphs, but you're still going to have, hopefully, 5, 6, 7 sections. And when I say that, let's think of a topic here. Our topic for our reflective narrative. So first of all, we need the social issue. Let's do that first. Social issue. Let's say someone wants to talk about guns on campus. It's a big one for a couple states. Right now, most laws are that you can't bring a gun on campus. That's any campus, anywhere. But some people say we should be able to do that. I teach at a university out here where we hire police officers. Excuse me. And those police officers donate their time, and they're carrying weapons on campus, but they're also police officers. So that's kind of a little bit different. And they donate their time, and for donating their time, they get free tuition. So that's some of the perks around here. But the point being is that they're still carrying weapons on campus, and some people don't feel comfortable because if you can't clearly tell it's a cop, how do you know it's not some guy who's carrying a gun on campus? And then you have real problems. Anyways, there's your social issue. Topic. Let's say that I now support guns on campus, if that's the case. I mean, I haven't really thought too much about it, but let's just say that I do. Supporting guns on campus, that would be gun laws on campus, I suppose. But nonetheless, now we have to kind of figure out what is it that we're going to try and convey. At one point, my story, and this would be more or less the planning stage, and I suppose this entire video is really kind of falling under the planning stage. I'm not going to write an essay here, I'm just showing you how to plan it. The story. My first part of my story is me going to school. Heaven forbid, hopefully this never happens, but let's say while I'm at school, there was a gunman at school. Okay. Now, while I'm at school, we talk about the consequences / outcomes of no carry. Now, when I say no carry, I'm referring to no arm, no weapons on campus. No one's carrying a weapon on campus. And of course, some of the details: people die, injuries. And just utter chaos. Okay, so that's kind of where my story goes. That's just the story, though. So, because at this point now I have to figure out how am I going to introduce this. What is my actual essay going to look like? My intro. The one thing that's very important about the intro, the most important thing about the intro, is the thesis. Now, one way that I teach my students to write a thesis. I use the SOAR acronym, and I made that up. You're never going to find that anywhere, so don't try and find it. Can you see up here? Okay. SOAR stands for subject, opinion, action, and reason. Now, traditionally, you're not going to have an action because it's going to be embedded in your thesis, and I'll explain that in just a second. But your subject, what is our subject? guns on campus. I hope you can see that. If not, feel free to ask questions at any time after the video, like in the forum. What is your opinion? Allow guns on campus. Now your reason, that's where this is the part that's really unique to a reflective narrative. If you are writing a persuasive essay, or a strictly persuasive essay, or an analysis essay, a synthesis essay, this is going to be different. But for a reflective narrative, your reason is going to be your story. Okay, it's kind of your evidence, your purpose of your paper. So whenever you start combining these, your thesis then becomes, and I always start my thesis off by saying the purpose of this essay is, and then afterwards I change it to be a little bit more elegant, so to speak. So, started off, the purpose of this essay is to, and then think of, now you follow the SOAR acronym. Subject, guns on campus. Opinion, allow guns on campus. Is to outline, the need for guns on campus based on my experience with a school shooting. I suppose I can talk about this stuff online. It's not, no one's going to bring a gun to an online campus. I guess I am in a school right now, though. Nobody's here. It's cool. Alright, so that is my thesis then. The purpose of this essay is to, and you can kind of steal that for any thesis. Just make sure you change it later because it doesn't really sound very good whenever you read it in an actual introduction. So the purpose of this essay is to outline the need for guns on campus based on my experience with a school shooting. Now, I'm going to go ahead and erase this, so if you need it, just pause the video and kind of write it down a little bit. Because that is our thesis. That is going to be the bulk of our intro. Whenever I say that, though, I should probably notate that the very first sentence is going to be your hook. The hook is the most, the part that gathers all the interest of the paper. You want to say something along the lines of this paper, it would be something interesting about school shooting. You can ask a question. Some people use quotes. I typically try and stay away from quotes in the introduction because if you start off with a quote, then the whole paper seems like it's going to be about someone else's information. And it's not about the quote, it's about your experience. Anyways, one hook you might use, what if you ended up at school with a gunman? Okay, that's a question. It gets people thinking, opening the question. They can kind of apply whatever answer they can think of in their mind. It's a way to get their interest. Then you want to provide me with some background. Why are we talking about this? Imagine if you just walked into a room and you said that hook. What if a gunman was here right now? And if you just walked into a room and said that, people are going to be looking like, is there one? Like, should I be alarmed right now? So if you did that, you walked into a room and asked that question, now you need to tell some background. You're going to need to tell people why you're talking about this. You don't just walk into the room and say, what if there was a gunman here right now? And then walk away because you're probably going to, alarm some people. Then you give some background and a thesis. Now, these don't have to be one sentence. The only one that needs to be one sentence is a thesis. You can give me, the hook should really just be one sentence as well. But the background can be several sentences, and it probably should be several sentences, 2 to 3 at least. And so you give me your hook, you get people interested, you give me some background, 2 to 3 sentences explaining what it is we're talking about, why are we talking about gunmen on campus, and the thesis, what is the point of this paper? The purpose of this essay is to talk about the gunman, I forget. Now, we move on to the rest of the actual essay. Instead of having body 1, body 2, body 3, we're going to have sections now. Section 1. In this case, we're going to talk about our story first. Your section 1 is going to be the story. Doesn't matter what you write about, section 1 is going to be the story, because that is the meat and potatoes of the essay. This is where you're drawing all of your evidence. Okay, this is why we're writing the paper, because this story had such a significant influence on our life. Once you tell the story, then it's section 2. Section 2 is going to talk about consequences of the story, and outcomes. Basically, what happened? What is the result of your story? And it doesn't necessarily have to be about you, but what happened? How did the story end? Why was it significant? And that's one question to ask yourself. Why was the ending significant? If we're talking about the gunman, well, we're talking about it. It's significant because there's severe safety issues with, both having a gunman on campus, having the ability to carry weapons on campus, I have to say, and there's also a safety issue if we don't carry weapons on campus. That's a fair argument. Now, Section 3. Now, you're going to want to talk about influence on your life. You're going to want to use here evidence from your story. There will be particular parts of your story that you're going to want to refer back to. Not in so many words, but remember when I talked up here about I walked into school and someone pulled out a gun? Well, that's important here, and that's important to my life because, and so you'll kind of go back and you'll pull out parts of the story and say, this is why this part's important. This is why this is a particular area of the story that had a significant influence on my life. Now, last but not least, you have the conclusion where you review all those details, review story, and basically you review all the sections. Just one single sentence about each section. Otherwise, if you end up with multiple, maybe 2 for each section, but if you end up with like 3 or 4 sentences for each section, you're going to have like 15 sentences in your conclusion, and that's not really what you want. 1 to 2 sentences reviewing each of the sections. Well, I guess it's not called section 2, is it? It's called outcomes. So review the story, review the outcome, review its influence on your life, and then review the thesis. Once you're done with that, the very last thing you want to do is you want to leave your reader thinking about something. You want them to have a little piece to chew on when they leave. Basically, ask another question. Tell why that's important. Talk about how this entire paper, you're trying to get the laws changed perhaps. That's kind of the moral of the story, is that we need to be able to carry guns on campus. Ask that question. You started off up here with the hook. What if a gunman came to class? Now you can kind of closing, and I'll call it the closing sentence. Now you can kind of close with, if a gunman ever were to come on campus with armed officers or students who have carry permits, the campus would be that much safer. And so it kind of leaves them thinking about what the entire paper was about. And so in a nutshell, that is kind of the organization that I want you guys to, well, you can have whatever organization you want. The organization that I would suggest would be probably the easiest, would be to start off with your intro, have your hook, your background, and your thesis inside the intro. That's your first paragraph. Have your section 1 about your story. That can be 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, 4 paragraphs, 5. It can be as many paragraphs as you want. Remember, you're limited to 4 pages, though. Section 2, consequences, again, 2 to 3 paragraphs. Another 2 to 3 paragraphs on how that story influenced your life. And then 1 paragraph on your conclusion. So if your intro is 1 paragraph, your section 1 is 2 paragraphs, section 2 is 2 paragraphs, section 3 is 2 paragraphs, and conclusion is 1 paragraph. You have 2, 4, 6, you have 8 paragraphs. Now that's about 3.5 pages. So if you did that, you follow this outline, hopefully that will save you some time. Nonetheless, that's kind of what I got for you guys now. We did the writing process in the last video. This was thesis, planning, and kind of organizing the reflective narrative. So if you guys have any further questions, feel free to ask any questions on the forum. Of course, you have my phone number, my email, and of course Skype. And if you need any particular videos, if you would like me to review something in this fashion, just let me know and I can definitely do it. Thanks.